Hello and welcome to TV Toastmasters. Today is Thursday, April 5th, and it's just beginning to be spring with our spring winds and spring tornado warnings in Ohio, so that's always exciting. I will say that we meet on the first Thursday at 6 p.m. at 7850 5 Mile Road in Anderson Township at the Anderson Community Center downstairs on Thursday in the TV studio. And then on Saturday, we meet upstairs it would be the third Saturday, and we meet at 10 a.m. at the same location. So please do come and join us. Everybody is welcome as a guest. We'd be happy to have you. And if you want to become a member, we can always talk to you about that at that point. We begin now with the Toastmaster, who happens to be myself, so I will just easily segue without the handshake. And I will say that we have an exciting meeting today with 3 speeches. Our first, and before we do that, I'm going to introduce the word of the day, all-counter grammarian, who happens to be me. And thank you. Thank you. And then the word of the day today is scrumptious.
What?
Scrumptious, which is delicious. Think of it as delicious, even more than delicious. So spring is scrumptious, right? The cake was scrumptious. Yes, and Valentine's Day is scrumptious if you get chocolate. There you go. Our table, and of course, the grammarian will be counting the number of ums, ahs, so's, you knows, double clutches, and as well as the use of the word of the day. I would now like to introduce our table topics master for today. His name is Dave Dalhanty, and he is an excellent speaker and Toastmaster. I'm excited to hear his questions. Please welcome Dave.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. And the theme for our table topics this evening will be spring. Spring arrived March the 20th. The grass has begun to green up. The flowers in the trees have also begun to bloom, and they are scrumptious. The first thing that takes place just before spring officially arrives here in the Cincinnati area is the time change. We move our clocks forward 1 hour for daylight savings time, which took place March the 11th. Tell us what you like and dislike about daylight savings time, Susan.
What do I like and what do I not like about daylight savings time? So I do like when we have the fall daylight savings time because we are jumping back, and that is always a really great memory of being in school, and we had a big party going on, and we were all allowed to stay an hour longer at the party because guess what? 9 o'clock, bam, it was 8 o'clock, and here we could just have some more party time. And so I always remember that, and I have no problem with that. When it comes to springtime and we have to jump forward, it's a different story. I am not very excited about it because I really feel that 1 hour that we lose, it takes me forever to get used to it. And having traveled back and forth between Europe and the United States many times and losing 6 hours sometimes, it's really not that bad compared to that, but still, I just wish that somebody would tell me a reason why they're still doing daylight saving times. I have no idea. Why are they doing it? What's the purpose of it? Is it really saving that much more electricity? I don't know. I know the farmers are having a very hard time with it because they have a problem with their cows. When the cows, they don't know that they have to give milk now an hour earlier or an hour later. So that's not a good thing. I cannot see the timer, so I'm not sure. I don't want to jump over the time, but so I think it's time for me to get off the stage because Somehow time just eluded me, and it was not a very scrumptious thing. Thank you. Thanks, that was fun.
As I said before, the theme was spring for this meeting, and we talked about the time change. And then tell us what the best part of, or what part of spring do you like and dislike?
Veronica. Madam Table Topics Master, whatever. You're fine. You're absolutely fine. We have fun here. We do. We laugh at my mistakes anyway. So, what do I like most about spring? I will say I heard an American Indian expression that the white men are the only people that believe if you cut off one end of a carpet and you tape it to the other, you have more carpet. That's daylight savings time. So, now you know. So that said, I love the spring bulbs. I love when they come out of the ground. I think they are scrumptious, as you have said before. I just cut the daffodils. I have now recently found out that if you put coffee grounds in the ground, it keeps the deer away. I have been told. And it's also good fertilizer. Now, of course, a chemist would say you can't put too much, be careful, and maybe it's something else that your ground needs. But I think it's interesting because I think the deer get everything except the daffodils in my yard. And there it is. So I thank you, Madam, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Okay, Veronica. And the other thing about springtime is the Cincinnati Reds. Reds opening day was March 29th. And have you ever attended an opening day game before? And tell us why you think the Cincinnati Reds mean so much to the people of Greater Cincinnati. Sean.
Okay. So Carol, will you time me?
Yes.
And the timing light is back there, so we'll take a second so you can get adjusted.
Thank you much.
So repeat my question, please.
Okay. Reds opening day was March 29th. And have you ever attended an opening day game before? And tell us why you think the Cincinnati Reds mean so much to the people of Greater Cincinnati.
To answer both questions? Honestly, baseball has started becoming one of my favorite sports. My son started playing, and as your kids play sports, become a lot more intelligent about how the sport works, a lot of the mechanics behind it, and what develops a good player or not. So I've been watching him play. He's actually 22 now. He stopped playing a couple of years ago. But it really opened my eyes and my love for the game, especially the big league. So I started getting Reds tickets and going to games. I'm kind of a snob. I don't like the $8 or $10 tickets. I don't like being nosebleeds. I try to get closer seats. Last year we got free seats in the Cincinnati Bell Paddle Wheel Tower. And I said, well, that's a really cool place to sit. But it was fully furnished with food and alcohol and all the drinks you want. So that was a pretty amazing game to watch. Yes, I watched the game and I saw a lot of it and still enjoyed it. I think the reason that the team is important to Cincinnati has a strong culture of both, I think, seeded and as well as transitional transplant type people that love sports. Because you look around the state of Ohio, and you allude to this in your speeches on, it's really Cincinnati versus Cleveland. Columbus doesn't have any professional level sports. You go a little bit further east, we've got Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh people are Pittsburgh people. You put them anywhere in the United States, and they love the Steelers, they love the Pirates, probably the Penguins as well. But Cincinnati is based on, we're in the central area within Ohio and this river valley, so the Bengals and the Reds still are big teams for our citizens, even though they don't win a lot. We still love our sports teams, and I love the Reds, and I'll be going a lot this year. Mr. Table Topics Master, hopefully I answered your question.
Thank you.
Well, it seems like Mr. Table Topics Master is done. Thank you. So we will go on to the next section of our meeting, which are the dedicated and pre-prepared speeches. Our first speaker today is speaking from the Pathways program. The program is Visionary Communication. This speech is the second part of her icebreaker, which is the first speech in that series. And the title of her talk is Brutal Ben and Whitewashed Willie Evaluations. Please welcome Carol Cormelink. Carol Cormelink, third time DTM, if not fourth.
Fourth time. Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Brutal Ben and Whitewash Willie evaluations. What can we learn from them? Who are they? Brutal Ben is the person that tells you everything you did wrong. He didn't like anything about your speech. You didn't read the objectives. You didn't meet the objectives of the speech, and he doesn't even like your tie. Whitewash Willie, he thinks you had a wonderful speech. There isn't anything you could do any better, that it was just perfect. Well, we all know that both of those are not entirely correct, and we can learn from them. When a person gets up and they don't have, their speech is not prepared, and that you only give them one or two things that they might improve upon. You don't tell them the whole litany of things they didn't do, because as you remember in previous speeches, I told you that we have sex before, during, and after the meeting. Speaker, evaluator, exchange of information. Before the meeting, you are to call your evaluator and speaker to find out, is there anything in particular that you want me to look for? During the meeting, you listen intently and write your evaluation, and at the end of the meeting, as I said, you only tell two or three things during the meeting, and then you can tell them at the end of it, you go over all the other things and give them more details. We don't do that, but that is what speakers and evaluators are supposed to do. You're frowning.
Oh, no. I'm enjoying.
Why, I didn't know if they did that in your club, or you haven't heard that before.
No. You're spot on.
Okay. Now, so we have Brutal Ben, he's giving you that terrible one, and then we have Whitewash Willie, he's giving you that great one. What can be done about that? You don't want that person to not come back because they had such a terrible evaluation, and you don't want that other person to think they're so great when there's a lot of things they can do. The general evaluator is the one to correct that, because part of the general evaluator's part of the meeting is to evaluate the evaluators. So if she were to find something that Phil was doing in his speech that could be done better, she would say to the evaluator, you might have mentioned to Phil how this would have enhanced his speech had he done this, rather than talk to Phil directly. You evaluate the evaluators. And the whole purpose of evaluations, and remember, an evaluation is merely your opinion. I don't have to agree with it. I do have to show you respect and listen to it, but I don't have to do it. And I found out I was doing a lot of things people were telling me, and I came in and previewed my questionnaire that I do at my Clean Up the Clutter class, and they said, well, you shouldn't have them write out that. You should just have them put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and have them circle. I did that. That was the wrong thing for me to do because I got no background information. I didn't do that anymore. So just remember, an evaluation is my opinion. If I were doing that speech, this is what I would do. My personality is totally different than yours. That doesn't mean that you're going to do that. And you have the choice to accept or reject whatever has been told you that you should be doing. I have a hard time with evaluations, but I'm really thrilled with the new Pathways evaluations. I think I will finally learn how to do evaluations because they give you things that you can really check on. The clarity, how well are they defining things, how is their volume. And last night when I was giving a speech, she said, Well, you speak at the same speed, fast. And that I should slow up. I should lower my voice at times. I should pause. I'm learning to do those things, and when I come back the next time, I'm supposed to give the same speech, which it won't be here, it'll be in my other club. All the things that they told me to do better, I will insert them into the next speech when I do that. Madam Toastmaster.
Excellent job. Timer, can we please have 1 minute of silence? Welcome back. Our next speaker, our next prepared speech of the night is Phil Barth, and he is going to be practicing his speech for the International Speech Contest. This is a really big deal. Over 80 countries participate at all levels. And so you win at the club level, you go to the area, the division, etc., etc., etc. Finally, 10 people compete. It's really exciting. And they also send in videos. And Carol can tell you more about that because she can tell you more about everything about Toastmasters. And I'm not being facetious. She's scrumptious. There it is. So our next speaker, as I mentioned, is Phil Barth. He is an Advanced Communicator Gold and Advanced Leader Bronze. He is doing a non-manual speech, and the title of his speech is Why. Please welcome Phil Barth, Why.
I know. Tom Cruise. Okay, maybe not, but I do like my prescription Ray-Bans. For one thing, they fit so well. In fact, there's just enough space between the lens and my eye to fit one adult wasp. Ask me how I know. It was a warm day in July. I'm packing the van for a trip to Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. This is what I saw as I packed the van. Suitcase, van. Duffel bag, van. Backpack, not the van. Wait a minute. That thing on my eye has 2 wings, 6 legs, and a stinger. It's a wasp. Now, if you ever find yourself in this situation, there is one thing you should not do. Don't squeeze your eyes shut really, really tight. By the way, should you find yourself in that situation, there is one thing you're going to do. You're going to squeeze your eyes shut really, really tight. You can't help it. Even the most calm person in the world will at least blink. And if you blink, that wasp is going to make your eye turn pink. And that's going to cause your vocabulary to shrink. My vocabulary became 13 words, and 5 of them were dirty. I grabbed my eye and I said, "Oh, son of a one. Oh, that little 2 stung me. Oh, 3, 4, 3, 4, 3." My kids are standing off to the side. My oldest son, Kenny, said, "Uh-oh, Dad's going to say 5. Well, I did not disappoint him. Well, now let me explain how that particular quarter hit the swear jar. In the middle of my rant, as my eye was swelling shut, I wasn't watching where I was stepping, and I landed my foot right on my prescription sunglasses. Oh, no! My Ray-Bans! Do you realize those things cost me $195? The worst part was my kids were laughing at me. Well, how could they not? I'm down on one knee, my eyes swollen shut. I look like profanity peg leg pirate Phil. Arrgh. It's been said that time and ice packs heal all wounds. Well, you wouldn't have known it if you'd seen me driving on the way to Kentucky. Stupid wasp. Cost me a pair of Ray-Bans. Finally, my wife said, "How about we stop at Dairy Queen?" I don't think a blizzard's going to help this situation. What about a blizzard with cookie dough? You know they're scrumptious. And it turns out that yes, time plus ice packs plus a scrumptious blizzard with cookie dough heals all wounds. I was feeling better when I got back into the van. I backed it up into the parking lot and I pulled forward and turned right into a parked Honda Accord. I walked out, I looked at the fender and said, $500 deductible. Down the drain. What do when life keeps stinging you? You get mad? You get upset? Do you feel like giving up? Or maybe you just shrink your vocabulary even more. I went down to 9 words. 9 of them were dirty. Oh, you'd have thought I was reciting pi to 1,000 decimal places. 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 9, 6, 2, 7. My middle son, Joe, is sitting in the back of the van and said, holy cow, I haven't heard some of those words since he watched Monday Night Football. And then I looked at my wife, and she said one word to me. Why? Not why are you teaching our children new vocabulary words, but why are we taking this trip? See, in life you will be on many journeys. Some of them will be huge, maybe even lifelong goals and quests. Some of them will be as simple as a family trip to Mammoth Cave, Kentucky. But on any of those journeys, you can get stung repeatedly sometimes. And when that happens, you might get mad. You might get angry. You might redo that 80s classic, 867-5309. But you won't give up if you remember why you're on that journey. Later on that day, we got into the cave. We crawled through some tight, wet, damp, cold spaces, and we finally came to a room called Grand Central Station. Grand Central Station is this huge room in the cave. 6 different caves converge in this room. The ceiling is almost so high you can't see it. There is enough room in Grand Central Station to fit 2 football fields. Think of that. The Browns and Bengals could lose simultaneously. When my son Tom walked into that room, he looked up at the ceiling, he looked over at the walls, and then he looked at me. He said one word. Wow! And with that one word, I had my why. All of a sudden, I could see that cave through Tom's eyes, through his young and, yes, unstung eyes. And that was my why. That evening, as we went to bed, Tom came up to me and said, Dad, this trip was awesome. And then he gave me a hug and he said, I love you, Daddy. It brought a tear to my eye, my good eye. And I realized as I went to sleep that that made this day the best number of all. A perfect 10. I couldn't remember who the Toastmaster was.
Thank you so much. Excellent job. Timer, please set the time for 1 minute of silence. We are now ready, welcome back, for our third prepared speech of the day. And the speaker is Sean Gallagher. The speech is his icebreaker. The project title is 3 Phases. He will be speaking from the Pathways Dynamic Leadership Manual. Please welcome Sean Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Pathways icebreaker. It's been a while since I've done any icebreaker. So I thought about, what am I doing here? I've got 6 minutes to tell you my life, because that's what an icebreaker is, right? So I went very high level. I'm not going to talk to detail my youth, where I too went to DQ, and I watched that Dennis the Menace cartoon with the word scrumdiddlyicious, because I didn't like the word scrumptious, but scrumdiddlyicious was good. But I will tell you certain phases of my life that I've evolved through, and I think I've looked back and learned some things. So phase one was really from birth to about middle teens, 15, 17 years old. I was actually, believe it or not, very small in stature, very short. I know you look at me now and you're doubting yourself. But I was also very skinny. I had well, my mom's never going to say this. I had an overprotective mother who sheltered me and felt like because I was born premature with scarlet fever and incompatibility of blood positive negative. And my dad went home to my siblings, all five of them, and said, he's not coming home from the hospital. So I think all that evolved into, I can't blame her 100%, an overprotective mother. So with that always on me, I was underconfident. I was not very outgoingly social. I had friends and I played like everybody else, but I didn't interact a bunch. I didn't step forward to work and deal with people, even at a young age. And I found myself doubting myself a lot because there wasn't a lot of things I felt like with that size and that beginning of life. And that mother, I love her to death. She did a lot of other great things as a side. I didn't have a very accomplished, confident upbringing because of me, because of what I internalized at that point. As we start looking at my middle teens, phase two, I started realizing I had some physical strength that really was beyond what was expected of me. I was able to do what we call a physical fitness very easily. So where I grew up, it was a test that you had to do in school. Sit-ups, push-ups, pull-ups, and a 2-mile run. And it came easily to me. Believe it or not, at my size, I beat all of my classmates. In fact, at one point in high school, I beat the whole school and broke some records. So as I start looking at my physical capabilities, my brother also bought some weight sets, and we started working out together at home. And I noticed that my strength and my size grew very easily and rapidly without anabolic steroids, naturally. So this was adding to my confidence, me thinking I can actually do something. A short guy with the upbringing I had could still accomplish something. And I'm a firm believer in life that accomplishment is what gives people confidence and rewards intrinsically. I don't believe that you telling somebody with a trophy, not that trophies are bad, or words is going to give people always an internal self-confidence. I think you really have to get self-esteem from doing accomplishments. So that kind of stepped me off to the next phase of life, and I think some of us can relate. I started discovering girls at that point. I started thinking girls are super awesome, super good looking, super crazy, and they still are. Of course, it's hard for us to understand girls, guys. But my life started shifting to knowing that I can do and I can accomplish and I can be. So there was a confidence level, but my ability to reach out to people and engage and truly touch people's lives was not developed at that point. So that part of my life, that confidence level, took me probably to late 30s, when a few things changed in my life. And honestly, one of the biggest things was my true acceptance and path to journey to seek God started. And I started also realizing that I can't do anything on this earth by myself. I needed God, but I needed people. Think of all the things that we do today. Think of the things you've tried on your own, by yourself, and then think of the things you try with other people. These two things factored into my life in a very big way and have truly gotten me to a different phase of life, phase 3. I don't know when phase 3 is going to end. Maybe it'll never end. Maybe I'll go to phase 4. But I feel more confident, more achieved, more calm, more happy and contented in my life now than I ever did. That's not to say I don't have those moments of doubt, moments of lack of confidence. That'll happen to everybody. You don't have absolute confidence and non-doubt, or you're fooling yourself. But my life is truly, completely different than phase 2 and phase 1 were. And the evolution happened for reasons. The evolution happened, and I'm glad for it. And the evolution happened, made me who I am today. So there's 3 phases of my life. And no, I will not say that silly word. I'm going to say scrumdiddlyicious, Madam Toastmaster. Back to you. Okay, I don't like your words.
We will now have 3 minutes of silence for all the evaluators to finish their evaluations. Welcome back. We are now back to our most exciting part of our meeting. I'm going to be introducing the general evaluator today, who is Sean Gallagher, and he will also be the first evaluator. We're changing the order of the evaluations just for tonight. Please welcome Sean Gallagher.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. So as general evaluator, I manage the third part of our meeting, which is the evaluation portion, which Veronica alluded to is the most important because it gives us feedback, as Carol had spoken about in her speech. We'll have myself evaluating Phil, we'll have Phil evaluating me, and we'll have Suzanne evaluating Carol. So I'll start out with my evaluation of Phil's speech. Phil's speech was why, and I think we all know this, but as an introduction, this is his speech getting him to the coming up divisional speech contest that can go all the way to the international contest that will be the semifinals and finals in Chicago, should he qualify. Phil, I've seen this speech and heard this speech many times now, and I'm not complaining. I think several of us have, because of the way you practice, you need to continue it. Interestingly, I heard it at my home club today at 1 o'clock. And yes, you made some changes from 1 o'clock until now. And that's amazing to me that within 6 hours you can turn it around and commit it back into what you're doing. So good flexibility there. I've said this before, but I want to point it out again. At the points in your speech where you're chuckling at yourself, I find that's a great tool to use. Because yes, you're telling a story that's got humor in it, you're delivering punchlines, but you're still showing us that you're having fun, you're laughing, you're giving us a little more credibility that this is a funny speech. Those subtle chuckles are a great, great tool that you use. I still like how you start out with packing the van. You went from a suitcase to the van, the backpack to the van, the next piece of luggage to not the van, and you described the wasp. On this one, there was a slight bit of mumbling. When you described the wasp inside, I think you even pointed about it being within your glasses, there was a slight mumble about giving that description. I forget exactly where it took place, but I did notate that. Just walking over your own words. Be cautious of that. Mm-hmm. Great step aside as you came to the audience and got closer, as if you're now coming out of your speech and you're giving advice about if you happen to have a wasp, don't shut your eyes really, really tight. So really, really interesting approach to leaving the main area of the speech and then coming back to your audience and engaging in the advice portion of that. I like that. And I don't think you did that today. Some of your tools you used were the rhyming, the blink, the pink, the shrink. I think it's called alliteration, profanity, peg leg, pirate fill. Those are great tools. That gets your audience laughing and enjoying what you're delivering. You have a knack for outstanding physical humor. Keep that up because I think that's one of your greatest skills. We're watching, we're feeling, and you're just putting yourself all in it. So that's a lot of the humor that I take from your speeches is your physical ability. One of the things I would suggest, and this might bring in a larger audience, because we got to consider where you're actually moving your speech to. You talk about the Browns and Bengals. They can certainly play and lose simultaneously in the cavern. I think it was Grand Central Station. Turn it to, and of course, you could also have the Patriots and the Seahawks simultaneously winning in the football of the NFL within the Grand Central Station. So maybe add that in, because it might capture a little more audience. And the thing that really got me at the end, you go from a humorous speech, a calamity situation speech, you turn it into a heartfelt moment, not just for you, but you help the audience understand using your tactics for life. Because life is going to happen. We're all going to get stung in some way. But it's a great inspirational message to leave us, and a great message to show us how you finally got, not finally in your life, but at the end of the trip, there was that moment with your son. And how many of us don't want a moment like that with our family members? I think that's all I've got for you. The ending and the summary just brought us all back together. The 10 is something I always enjoy. So great job. Good luck at the next level. Mr. General Evaluator. That's me. The next evaluator will be Phil Barth, coming up to evaluate Sean Gallagher. Phil, are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm going to steal your chair.
Absolutely. This is my first Pathways evaluation, Sean. Welcome. Sean gave us a real good look at his life, the breadth of his life. I love the construction of it. I love those 3 phases and how you started out young, overprotective mother, and the phase of where you were in high school and you were excelling at running and athletic endeavors and lifting weights, and then the 3rd phase where you grew older and got closer to God and made that an important part of your life. I like the progression. I like the way you did that. What did you excel at? Your humor was really good. And some of it seemed like it was just thrown in at the last minute, like, well, my mom's not going to see this, so I can say she was overprotective. Because, and I can relate, you know, my mom watches my YouTube channel. I'm still not sure she's going to like the whole 3, 4, 5. But I'm not going to put it on private, you know. Hey, Mom, it is what it is. So I can relate, you know. I don't want to say this in front of my mom. I can relate to that. I liked your rule of 3 with, I found the girls super, I can't even remember what the 3 were, but super this, and then super hard to understand or something like that, super hard to communicate, and every husband in the world goes, yeah. Also, my wife doesn't watch this on YouTube.
Amen.
This ain't going on my YouTube channel, that's for sure. Again, I like the way you can break it out. Work on. You were a little rough on that first part where you're trying to remember. I think it's the RH factor, where you have the competing RH factors. And also, you couldn't remember scarlet fever. So, a little more practice there. The intro was, you just kind of started talking about pathways, and then you went into the story. And the conclusion, I think you went back to the word of the day, and it was scrumptious. I kind of bastardized it for the word of the day, but or 5'd it for the, or 6'd it for the word of the day, whatever. To challenge yourself, start with the hospital story. That is so powerful. A dad coming home and saying, he's not going to make it, guys. And there you are, you know, this is what you're up against. And think of your mom thinking, my son is not going to make it. And everybody in the audience is going to be like, wow. And so you put your mom as the overprotective mother. So starting it that way is really good. Think about breaking it into 3 speeches, because each one of those could be a really good speech. And you could turn it from your mom being so overprotective and you're saying, I'm not going to do it because my mom's overprotective, which is what happened to you, when you realize, wait a minute, that's on me. That's not on my mom. That's on me. And then you start to progress. And that's a really good lesson there. And then my last challenge for you is eye contact. You had good eye contact, but it was 1, 1, 1, and back and forth. And the challenge is deliver a line to one person until you're like, in the back of your mind going, holy crap, this is really getting uncomfortable. And at that point, you probably made the right amount of contact because that person is not thinking that. They're thinking, Sean is talking to me directly, and that's really good. So work on one thought to one person. It's tough, but I got nothing else to pick on. I mean, your confidence is great. Your voice is great up here. You're taking us down that path to memory lane. The light is now red, and since the time is not going to spring back an hour right now, I have to stop. But I enjoyed it immensely. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. For our third speech, actually our first speech and our third evaluator, we're going to bring up Suzanne Wittrock. Suzanne, you ready? Yes.
All right. I am evaluating Carol Kormelink, which is a pro. She's a pro, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to say now? How can I even say anything that should be changed or that I didn't hear was right? I wish I would have heard your speech, I guess yesterday you said you did it, so I could compare it to the one you did today. That would make it so much easier, I think. So the title is long. I'm like, what is that about? So what I liked was that you talked about some of the points that you had to work on. So it gave me some idea that you are speaking slower, that you're making some pauses. And I noticed that you did do that compared to other speeches I've heard you given in the past. And I really appreciate that because I need some time to hear the words, change them over in my head, like, okay, this is what they're saying, change it back. It all goes real fast, but it still takes time. And then write things down. So I cannot follow a real fast speech. And so I appreciate that you are slowing down and you're taking your time. Pauses are very good as well, and I heard them in there too. So that's great, you're working on that. And you didn't go over the time. That was pretty awesome because I know in the past we've gone up there way beyond some minutes, right? So I really appreciate that you stayed right there on that. And the whole speech, the whole talk, it felt real nice and tight to me. And I can't wait to hear it again because I know there was a lot of information in there that I can learn from as well when I'm going to give speeches in the future. And what I also like a lot is that when you give a speech or when somebody else gives a speech, that you don't have to like what they're talking about, right? Because all you have to do is you just have to evaluate them. That is such a great, it makes so sense anyway, right? But I don't think a lot of times we think about that. So that was a really great concept that I'm going to take forward from now on. So I really don't have much, eye contact is great. You're speaking from your heart and soul, and people can feel that. So looking forward to your next speech. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Nice job up there. So now we're going to call up some of the roles and get some of the reports for our meeting, and then I'll talk about the evaluators' evaluations. Veronica, would you be able to give us some information about grammarian outcount?
Yes, I would.
Thank you very much.
Would you like me to?
I think we would.
I would be able to. Yes, I will. Grammarian. These guys are pros. This was a tough meeting because so many seasoned salt and peppery type of people, garlic and sea salt, celery salt. Yeah. So that said, I will say that my word of the day is so. I do it a lot. I sew a lot, so I hear it in other people. The one thing I heard in your speech, Carol, was speed down. instead of speed up or slow down. So I don't know if you meant it that way. It's sort of funny when you say speed down because it's sort of what sometimes people do when they're trying to slow down. They speed down. Excuse me. And your word, I can't even say it, was nicely done. I don't know if you used the word of the day, scrumptious, but I think you did. I also know that it was Suzanne, I believe, used it with spring, and I know I did, and I believe this gentleman over here, the general evaluator, Sean, also did during the table topics. And of course, both Phil and Sean did as well. But Carol, I did not hear you use the word of the day. Of course, it was a prepared speech, and it really was following the pathways. That is all that I have, sir. Mr. General Evaluator.
Nice work. Dave, you're our timer for the day. Would you like to give the timing report? And you have a choice. You can come up here. You can do it from there. I'm going to give you that option.
Video.
Oh, you must come up here because we're on video. I've forgotten this point. Thank you very much.
Carol's speech. It was a 46-minute speech, and she went 4 minutes and 30 seconds. And Phil's speech was a 5 to 7 minutes, and he hit it 7 minutes right on the nose. And Veronica, let's see. Sean, okay, good. Okay, he gave a 46-minute speech, and he went 5 minutes and 58 seconds. And on the table topics, Susan went 1 minute and 8 seconds. Veronica went 1 minute and 9 seconds, and Sean went 2 minutes. And on the evaluation, that was for Susan, or for Carol. Susan went 2 minutes and 49 seconds. And on Sean's speech, Phil went 4 minutes and 57 seconds. And then on Phil's speech, Sean went 3 minutes and 33 seconds. And Veronica on the grammarian, she went 1 minute and 39 seconds.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Okay.
Do me a favor. Pick that timing light up and turn on the red.
Please.
Pick that up and turn on the red and show me. For the life of me, I thought that was orange. And my brain wasn't thinking, no, it's the top of the colors. So there's no way I thought I was at red anywhere through that evaluation. So I apologize for going long. The brain just wasn't working. Picking it up. I'm telling you, I know what I was looking at. It was orange. I will. I'll use that one. All right. Let me evaluate the evaluators. Phil, this is going to be tough because you evaluated me. And I did enjoy, well, I did. I like the fact that you gave me some bigger picture and larger approach with thinking about the hospital and that beginning. I mean, that's just going to, if I use that kind of an approach, that's just going to grab people's emotions and bring it about and start setting up the rest of the story. That was a really good point. And especially my mom and dad's perspectives, because I think they both had a different parenting style. And that's often, I think that's often the case between men and women. Eye contact, that was a real good point to make sure how I'm truly connecting. Because I do sometimes tend, and I do look away when I can't think of what I'm trying to catch up on, so you caught that. That was pretty helpful. Because you're evaluating me, I can't give you something different to have done. It's just not happening. I'm sorry. I usually force myself to give somebody an improvement. I think that's what evaluation is about. I'm going to give you an out on this one. Thank you. Suzanne, I really like the fact that you pointed out, and I agree, I think you managed your pace better than what we've seen in the past. So that means you're growing and taking an evaluation. But the fact that she did slow down and give you a chance, because I think what you're telling us is your ability to keep up in the English language and comprehend and commit that is a little bit still a struggle for you. Is that what you're telling us? So it's nice that you're pointing out that you were having an easier time following Carol's speech because of her pace. So that worked well for your evaluation with Carol and Carol knowing that's good feedback. I want you to challenge yourself that no matter who's speaking, you're a highly intelligent person, you are good at picking out points. Consider the fact that you can evaluate anybody and give them something to improve on. Because I took away some of the things you said that, well, Carol's an accomplished speaker, she's been speaking for so long, it's going to be tough. Know that you'll find something. And I'm going to be honest, and you guys have seen me do this, pace and pause are things that not everybody gets perfectly. In fact, not many people get both of them right. You can always grab pace or pause, volume or walking over words. I'm not saying you have to use as a filler, but there'll be something that comes to you to say, you can improve on this. So don't set yourself to think you're not going to be able to do it, because I know you can. That's my message to you. The one thing I caught that I just did, you did pause, which is what we do need to do to collect our thoughts. You started looking down and you started so like I'm doing wrong, try not to use that filler word, give the chance to pause and recollect your notes. And that's all I've got for you at this point. And as general evaluator, I think this portion is done. I'm going to turn it back over to the Toastmaster, Veronica.
Thank you, Mr. Gallagher. I love our meetings. This is a conclusion of our meeting, but I do want to remind our audience that we meet on the first Thursday of the month at 7850 5 Mile Road in Anderson Township. We also meet on Saturdays, the third Saturday at 10 a.m., and that is also at the Community Center in Anderson Township on 5 Mile Road. And I would like to then close the meeting. Thank you all. The speeches were wonderful. Thank you so much for Table Topics. Great job, everyone.